Go. Welcome to today's Facebook Live discussion, everyone. We are going to talk about empowering displaced students through cloud technology. My name is Nele Feldman. I am the head of the IIE Student Emergency Initiatives. And I'm really happy that I'm joined today by my colleague, Dr. Keith Watenpaugh, Professor and Director of Human Rights at UC Davis. I'm sure you all joined today because you know that it's World Refugee Day. And again, you may know that there are more than 65 million people being forcibly displaced from their homes. It's a really unfortunate statistics. And among those displaced people, there are a lot of university-age students that are trying to reconnect to higher education opportunities. Only approximately 1% of those 65 million displaced people are able to reconnect or connect to higher education opportunities, which is compared to a global average of approximately 34%. So UC Davis and IIE have been working very closely together over the past 5 years to really explore what the challenges and the impact of conflict on higher education is. And I think we all try to, with our different initiatives, we really want to address some of the challenges and help displaced students reconnect to higher education opportunities. What IIE has done over the last few years, we've been working with a lot of displaced students. In March 2017, we launched our newest initiative, which is the Platform for Education in Emergencies Response, or for easiness, PEER. PEER is a global clearinghouse for education opportunities specifically for refugee and displaced students. So let's say you're a student from Afghanistan, you can go on IIEPeer.org, you can go to the student section and you can search, I'm a student from Afghanistan, I would like to go to Germany, and I'm searching for a scholarship. And then it really pulls up all of the information that is available for your specific search criteria. So what we think, this is kind of one part in the puzzle of helping students figuring out what their next step in terms of connecting to higher education is. Keith and his team, they've been working on another part of that puzzle, which is called the Article 26 Backpack. And I'm really happy to have Keith with us today. He is actually at the American University of Beirut in Lebanon. So Keith, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce you to your initiative. And also, maybe we're going to have the chance to talk to some of your students and to really learn a little more about the backpack.
Thank you, Nele. This is a great opportunity, and I want to thank IIE for its continuing partnership with the University of California, Davis. Working together, we really pioneered this field of higher education emergencies and reaching out and trying to bring attention globally to the fact that wars now displace, as they displace refugees, they also displace young people from universities, from higher education, and from opportunities. But before I really start, I wanted to turn the camera around and invite a group of young people who have joined us today to say hello. Hi. Joining us today, thank you. Joining us today are a cadre of backpack guides who are drawn from scholarship programs here at the American University of Beirut, who has their origins in the refugee populations of the region, including people displaced from the war in Syria, but also those displaced from Palestine over the course of the last 70 years. So the backpack, what is the backpack? We have actual backpacks here, but this backpack is a digital backpack. One of the most critical issues always facing refugees, and I think this is important to remember on World Refugee Day, is that refugees are often disconnected. That one of the common denominators of the refugee experience is being disconnected. Disconnected from homeland, disconnected from family, but also disconnected from opportunities and education and careers. And this is why, when we hear this number of 34 to 36% of all people in the world have access to higher education, but only 1% of the refugees do. And when I heard that, I wasn't even surprised, because our experience the last several years has been that displaced people have an incredibly difficult time reconnecting with higher education opportunities. So we decided we would try to figure out a way to build a pathway of reconnection. And one of the things that has often kept refugees and others disconnected is they've lost their documents. They don't have official copies. They can't figure out a way to have those documents evaluated by professional credential evaluators. And then they don't have a good way to even share the documents with possible employers or with universities or with people who can help them, scholarship organizations. And so that's the origin of this new tool, the Article 26 backpack. And it's named for the article in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is about 70 years old this year, that establishes education as a basic human right. So the backpack provides an opportunity for a refugee and other young people to safely store and share a narrative of achievement, documents, things that they find to be important, like creative works, with people who might be able to help them.
Well, that's great, Keith. Thank you so much. And I think it's really, I just want to stress on our side. So IIE, for everyone who does not know IIE, we come in from the perspective of trying to help students get scholarship opportunities so we can really place them at universities. And you're so right. The documentation, the academic documentation is so crucial and so important for the admissions offices. It sounds very technical, but it is a big step for the admissions offices to really be able to evaluate if a student, has the qualifications to actually be successful in their program. And I think also what Article 26 Backpack shows is that there are so many different components to trying to help displaced students connect or reconnect to higher education, and that it really takes players like UC Davis, like IIE, so many other third-party stakeholders to work together to actually make it happen for those displaced students to have the education opportunities that they really deserve. And I guess what I would also like to stress on my end is while a lot of times, and I don't know if you can confirm that, Keith, we hear about education and higher education specifically not being that much of an immediate need. I guess where we come from is really that investing in education, and also part of that is most definitely higher education. It's a very smart long-term investment into not only the individual, but really also kind of their communities, and hopefully for them an opportunity to rebuild their lives. So I don't know if you have a comment on that, or if you can share kind of your thoughts.
So I think that's a very important question. I think it's something that those of us who have been interested and involved in this field of higher education emergencies and refugees have faced for a while, which is that when the global community thinks about the refugee and the refugee crisis, I mean, their minds immediately travel to camps and food and blankets and how are we going to help people keep body and soul together in the face of terrible circumstance. Mm-hmm. And it should go to there, right? I mean, very early in this conflict, one of the first places that we did our research was at the Zaatari refugee camp in northern Jordan, which was home to a couple 100,000 people. And it was a really tough place. And here in Lebanon, we also have informal camps. The Lebanese government has not allowed the United Nations to help refugees establish formal camps. But helping people in that regard is critical. But that's temporary. The reality is that most people displaced now experience displacement, or the period of displacement from when they've left their country or they fled to when they're resettled or established or returned. The length of time is often, it averages right around 17 years. Mm-hmm. A few months. I mean, that would be a wonderful outcome if that were the case. But years of displacement. And often during that period, moving from across several different borders or several different places before final resettlement or return takes place. And so paying attention to secondary education and higher education is absolutely critical. And one of the most important things a UN higher education official ever said to me that helped encapsulate the value of investing in higher education is, where are the teachers for the refugees going to come from if we don't have college students who are trained in education and different fields? And so this, but it is refugee young people who attend, who rejoin or reconnect with higher education are the leaders, not just of a future Syria in this case, but they're also leaders of a Syrian diaspora, of a Syrian community that will be spread throughout the world. And they will have the responsibility of helping to build the link between Syrian newcomers in places in Europe and the Western Hemisphere and those local communities. They will have learned, they've learned foreign languages. They have developed professional skills and professional degrees. These are the leaders, both of the people who will rebuild their countries and who will help people settle and be successful in places where they find refuge.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So taking it back to your great initiative, the backpack, could you tell us how, let's say, I am a Syrian student and I would really like to use the backpack. Can you share with us a little bit how that works and maybe even we're able to talk to one of your students?
Sure. So we chose the metaphor of the backpack for a very important reason. It's something you can fill up, that you can put things in it. And you put in, the way it works is a backpack guide, like the young people that we have here will meet with a backpacker, someone who will be using a backpack, a refugee student or others. That young person will have brought with them, hopefully, documentation, things like transcripts or diplomas or certificates. And sometimes they've already used the internet to store PDF versions of these documents. They'll then fill out their profile, and they will then use different techniques to either photograph or upload directly into the backpack's digital platform what they're working on. There's a debate raging over here right now amongst the backpack guides about how best to do it. And then it's now safely and securely stored in the cloud. And the same for creative works and activities. Several of our students are studying civil engineering, and you could imagine them uploading exemplars of projects that they've done. Others are involved in the arts. You could imagine them uploading creative works in the digital sphere or graphic arts into the backpack. And then they're all safely stored. But the most powerful feature of the backpack is that they can then take these documents and, using what we call the share function, share those elements of their backpack with an employer, with a scholarship, with a university, and they can do it safely. We've developed a way that when the backpack is shared, the link to that share will expire after 7 days. And we also are firm with people who are getting it that this is for their use. So we want to defend and respect the privacy and the rights of the backpacker to control the documents and the documentation of their activities, to control them as far as possible, but also make sure that those who can help them have proper access to them.
But then if I understand you correctly, it really is a tool that is for both. It is for the students, but at the same time, it also is for universities, for a potential employer. So it does fulfill the purpose of really empowering the student, while at the same time, in a way, almost building capacity on the side of whoever receives the backpack.
Right. So in other words, what we're in, to some extent, as we designed it with our colleagues from the American Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers, we wanted to build the backpack in a way that, yes, empowered the students to develop a narrative of achievement, to make sure that they could use it properly, but also, and this is part of the plan, something that's easy to use on the side of the admissions officer or the employer. But also, not just easy to use, but done in a way that they can get a very clear picture of the accomplishments and the potential of the young person that they're encountering through the backpack. The backpack is a tool of connection, right? This is something we've talked about earlier in this discussion, is that the experience that is so, that faces all refugees around the world is this sense of disconnection. And I can't tell you how many young people we've dealt with over the years who say, has the world forgotten us? And in many
Absolutely.
that drove me originally to help develop the backpack. Because I want to say, no, we haven't forgotten you, but you might need the backpack to remind people that you have done these great things and you have this great potential. So that's what the backpack does. It empowers, it rebuilds a connection, but it also reminds the world that these young people are here, they want to go to school, and they're ready to work.
Right. Do you think we could do you think there's a student who would be interested in sharing like some of their experiences with us?
Sure. I thought I'm going to turn this over to my young colleague, Islam. I'm going to turn it over. Let's see if we can see her. Do we see her just fine over here?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, Islam.
I've disappeared. Okay. So Islam is from a small village in the outskirts of Syria, of Damascus, that in fact suffered really terribly during the war, in fact.
Exactly.
It had a hard time, called Daraya. And so she's one of our first cadres of backpack guides. Can we see? Oh, we need to turn just a little bit more. Let's see. Which direction? This
is perfect. We can see both of you.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So she is a scholarship student here at AUB, but I thought shall I ask you a couple questions, or should I? Okay. So how would you use the backpack? What do you think you would use it for? And what would be some of the things that you'd want to put in it?
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, I am just like any Syrian refugee who left his or her country. So when I left my country, I lost all my academic documents. So by using backpack, I'll be able to save all of them and use them easily and share them with scholarships to continue my master's degree or even to apply for job opportunities and others.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the things that Islam will be able to do is because she has some of her documents and she's gotten more, she'll be able to have access to credential evaluation and perhaps even have some of the missing pieces of her academic past reconstructed through the talents of credential evaluators. So the backpack is going to connect her to that possibly connect her to that particular service. So, I mean, imagine, now put yourself in the position of a backpack guy, which is a real position of leadership and responsibility.
Yeah.
And imagine that there's a group of Syrian young people. How would you explain to them why they should get and use the backpack?
First of all, it's really important for me because I'm giving back to my community. So I'm helping Syrians who are facing the same difficulties that I was facing many years ago. So using the backpack will help them, as you said. It's very important tool to save our academic documents. Mm-hmm. The most important is that they could edit it whenever they want, wherever they want. So they could add things, new certificates. Like for me, I do a lot of volunteering activities. So I always get new certificates, like internships and others. So we could add them whenever we want and wherever we want.
And actually, if I can add on that, I think what I really like about that is what you just said, is about giving back to your community, right? Because then you do feel that you're part of a bigger community. And it's not only you kind of uploading documents, but you have someone like yourself who is really acting as a guide and who can also kind of help you, walk through the backpack and you can discuss how this will help you ultimately. And really, as you call it, Keith, reclaiming your higher education, kind of credentials, and also, I guess, like in a way, plan ahead for the next steps to come. So I do also very much like the idea of creating a community, being part of a community.
Right.
Exactly.
So I think on World Refugee Day, one of the things we should really reflect on is the fact that Islam's story is a story of grit, of determination,
mm-hmm.
of work, but she's not the only one. That there are hundreds of thousands of young people like her, not just here in the Middle East, but around the world, who they have a story of achievement and a story of ambition and the right to tell that story and the right to reconnect that we must listen to and that we have to embrace. I mean, refugees should not be perceived as a burden, but refugees, we're going to get adjust my camera here. Refugees should be considered a resource, an opportunity, a chance to bring in people who are willing to work hard, to contribute to societies, or actually to prepare themselves to return to the societies that have been devastated by war and conflict and help rebuild them. So this is why even today I think about Islam. I think about the other young people here and how I'm really sort of buoyed by their ambition and their skills and their acumen and their desire to help, and know that we're doing something really important here with the Article 26 backpack. And this is just the start. The backpack is really the raw material for a much larger opportunity to collaborate with organizations like IIE to help reconnect, not just connect with opportunity, but connect employers and others with a chance to see these young people for the ambitious, hardworking, and skillful people that they are.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of a really nice end note before we open it up to questions from the Facebook audience that is listening in. So I really encourage everyone to, if you have any questions, either for me, something that is related to what IIE is doing, for Keith regarding the backpack, just feel free to type in your questions and I can read those questions out loud. So in the meantime, while I'm waiting for questions, I think, Keith, just your last point is so very important every day, but especially this day, to also make sure that you're not a refugee, I'm not a refugee, that really ultimately what we try to do is give a voice to those people that are directly impacted by armed conflict and war. And also I think what we at IIE very much enjoy, specifically when it comes to education, it does give people hope for a better future, and it really empowers them to take ownership of their own lives. And it kind of takes it away from the perception of refugees being victims,
right,
to refugees really being able to shape their own lives and really being able to take ownership of their lives and to have a broader impact on their families, their friends, their communities. And I think what you're saying is so important, that also we should not look at refugees as a burden to our societies, but each and every refugee that is coming brings a specific skill set, and they're more than willing and eager to share that with our communities and our societies. So I think it's very important now more than ever to remind ourselves and everyone who's listening in, and hopefully also everyone who's not listening in today, of of the really just like the great contributions that those people and students make to our societies. Just gonna have a look at if we're getting in questions. Bear with me. So one question is, how can someone who doesn't work in education and emergencies help support displaced students access higher education? So I think, Keith, that is a question both you and I can respond to. I'm going to give it over to you first.
Well, I think some of the ways, I mean, there's opportunities for philanthropy, of course, to help with the development of the backpack. There's also, IIE has a give page, and so does the backpack, so I encourage people to visit it. But I think more important, it's providing opportunities for refugees to tell their stories and have those stories heard. And that could be in the political sphere, the civil society sphere. It could also be in the area of employment opportunity as well. I think the other real field here is that to think about is that so much of the defense of the rights of refugees and others really has to fall to the public, to civil society, because we're in a historical moment where we're seeing more and more governments abandoning their responsibility to help refugees and defend their rights. And so we are entering a moment when our societies and our people are going to have to mobilize on behalf of protecting the rights of refugees. For example, not having their children taken away at the border station.
Right. So I guess, I think to just add on that, it's also, I think what can be done on more the level of, actually students and communities is also to really bring the human face to those people and kind of, work against the trend of sometimes dehumanizing to humanizing the people we're working with. I guess from the IIE perspective, for example, a very concrete way that people, it depends on, of course, if you're a student, if you're more coming from a university or an organization, government. If you're a student, go to IIE Peer and sign up as a volunteer. I think the idea is pretty much in line with what you're doing. So you have volunteers, that students who wish to access higher education, but they kind of just need a little more extra help in terms of how do I develop my resume? How do I apply to a university in the UK, in France that might be different? So we really want to connect students to resources and people who are willing to help them and walk them through that process. If you're a university, you should always go to your, and maybe Keith is better placed to talk about the university perspective, but we certainly encourage universities to kind of take it to their leaderships and say, well, how can we support refugee students that are already in our communities? How can we possibly provide scholarship opportunities for those who are still, let's say, in Jordan, in either like an urban, kind of camp situation? So there are always a lot of opportunities how you can really get engaged. And I guess I just want to re-emphasize to reach out to Keith and myself if you want to have a kind of like a, deeper conversation on how to get engaged with that specific type of work.
I think
sure.
We're really at a moment where especially the right to education is under terrible siege, both in terms of violence on college campuses, on reduction of financial support, the elimination of scholarship programs, and so on. That the human right to education is something that universities and colleges and systems of higher education around the world, I think, really need to step forward and step up to help defend them. And so this is one of the reasons why we at UC Davis are so proud of our efforts to take our knowledge, our scholarship, also our understanding of the technology undergirding and supporting the backpack, why we're so proud that we've been able to take this out into the field where we can make a very positive impact and a very concrete impact on protecting the human right to education. I mean, the backpack is not just a manifestation of good social science research. We had this great tech team at the University of California, Davis, working hours and hours putting it together to make it the really robust and stable platform it is. But it's also something that it's a tool that works not just as technology, but as a connector. And you see this in the backpack guides, because it's this wonderful thing happens with when the backpack guides are working with refugee students. They're filling up the backpack, they're loading materials and so on, but then they start to talk about different things, right? You guys talk with them about CVs and what to put on them, and what kind of documents might work, and then even about scholarship opportunities and so on. So we're trying to build human connection. Mm-hmm. This human connection, the use of technology. Technology should never overshadow the critical role of human interaction. And that's something we at universities, I think, are very good at doing, is promoting and building that opportunity for human beings to reach out to one another. And again, I'm always haunted by these statements I would hear this, it was in Jordan or here in Lebanon or in Turkey, I would hear this from refugee young people. Why has the world forgotten us?
Right.
That is a call to action, because if we forget them, we're forgetting our own humanity in the same process. And so the backpack has been one effort among many of operationalizing our own humanity in an effort to tell refugee young people like Islam and the others in this room, you are not forgotten.
Absolutely.
We haven't forgotten you, but we also know you need to also embrace opportunity, and they will, and be empowered by tools like the backpack.
I think it's 12:30, so, well, here at least New York time. I know that you're in a slightly different time zone. We do have a few more questions. So someone would be interested in seeing how, the backpack works, and if if really the backpack, how that helps to get, hopefully, for example, admissions to universities. So I think kind of like my last comment or call to action would be to really connect to the backpack, to the Article 26 backpack, and to Keith and his team. Keith, I'm sure on your website there is an email address where people can send questions to, just because we won't have time to unfortunately address all of the questions in today's Facebook Live discussion. So again, feel free to reach out to Keith and his wonderful team that have been working on, really designing the Article 26 backpack. Feel free to reach out to myself and my team. The same, you can go to our website and you can find an email address and you can reach out to us if you want to, if you want to connect to Keith, if you want to learn more about what IIE is doing to help displaced students, regardless if you are a student or a university organization. For all of our initiatives, meaning UC Davis and IIE, regardless of kind of where you're coming from, there's always a way to really get engaged. And we very, very much hope that each and every one of you who has a question will take the opportunity to follow up with us.
And thank you. And you can reach out to the backpack at article26.ucdavis.edu. You can send an email to article26backpack@ucdavis.edu or article26backpack@aub.edu.lb. And we also have our Facebook site as well, which we find that this is where we get an incredible amount of by young people, and we're answering queries all day, in fact, from young people here in Lebanon. So again, thank you for this opportunity, and please, anyone listening or watching, feel free to reach out. This is a very difficult moment in human history with 65 million of our fellow human beings displaced by war and conflict, and it's a moment where all of us have a role to play in addressing that tremendous human challenge.
Absolutely. Keith, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's evening in Beirut to share with us, the great work that you and your team have been doing. Islam, I don't know if you're still sitting next to Keith. Thank you also very, very much for providing kind of your personal experience, as a backpacker. And again, please feel free to reach out to IIE and UC Davis with any questions that you have. And then Keith, I guess just we hope we certainly going to support you and your ambition to make the backpack global, I guess. With that, thank you very much for joining. And again, reach out to us if you have any questions. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye now.